Today's sponsor is Audible.com, who has more than 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Get a free audiobook of your choice at www.audibletrial.com/Trending Topics with BB.
Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown, hence the BB. First and foremost, I would like to thank everybody that is finding this podcast wherever podcasts may be found. And if you don't know exactly where that is, I don't know how, but if that is the case, feel free to log on to trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com, which is the official website where you will find links and information pertaining to this podcast. And if not, you will also see the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages that we have for this podcast. And again, I can't thank all of you enough for finding this podcast. And if not, please go back and check out some of the previous episodes. This podcast has been around for a few years. Yeah, I don't have as many episodes regularly released, but hopefully we'll get on a good roll here. I have some guests coming on soon, later on in the summer, that will again continue the conversation on music and the like. But right now, I want to get on my soapbox. Okay, so before the last couple of days' events, or the last week's events, I guess, I have been mustering up another one of my soapboxes about how fucked up times are right now. I've been on it recently. Get Your Mind Right talked about it, and a lot of my previous soapbox episodes, if you have not listened to, mentioned those issues that are really pissing me off. But wow, there is just a lot of hate going on right now, and I have no idea if this is ever going to stop. It's just hard to talk about. First and foremost, I guess the recent issue is Roseanne Barr and her tweet that you can probably find in every major news outlet out there, even though she left Twitter and apologized for what she tweeted. But yeah, ABC, congratulations for following what you should have done. And Roseanne, you have issues. Nothing's new. None of this is surprising. And I've tried to watch the new iteration of Roseanne. I actually thought this new reboot of Roseanne was going to be good, even though she still had her views. They were tackling some other issues that are more with the times. So I thought it was going to be a good balance to kind of signify what is happening in society. But the first couple episodes were not funny at all. I don't know. I just never been a big fan. I love sitcoms. I always have. And I grew up in the 90s when sitcoms was still a big deal. So I was hoping, and with the reboot of Will and Grace being so great as it has, I thought Roseanne was going to follow suit. But nonetheless, ABC did a good thing, even though the show is very popular, to pull the plug and not bring it back for a season 2. And this is also after some of the producers weren't returning for their own reasons, but recently Wanda Sykes was the first to be like, no, I ain't doing this, and then they pulled the plug. So not to rehash what is going on in the media right now, but another thing that really, to kind of fucking takes the cake about this, is that, so we have a president who loves to take to Twitter and just fucking, say whatever the fuck he wants. And yet, he's still president. And even today, he's pissed that Roseanne was canceled because Roseanne is a Trump supporter. And so he was pissed that the ABC executives didn't call him first to discuss this decision. Are you fucking serious? Like, he wouldn't have gave a shit if she wasn't a Trump supporter, or spewing the same thoughts and ideas that he religiously spews every fucking day in his own right on Twitter, even as, quote-unquote, the leader of the free world. But I don't even know if that's it anymore. That's its own iteration of bullshit to kind of unpack. But this whole thing is hilarious because this is stemming on what happened, I guess, last week, and it was the NFL's decision to fine and penalize teams for players that decide to take a knee during the national anthem. And now there's this big debate after this whole Roseanne thing about free speech. So the people that are racist and are applauding what she did, even though it was racist, and if you don't think it's racist, you are part of the fucking problem. But they're like, oh, it's freedom of speech, and it's just a joke, blah, 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 blah. But they're the same people last week that were applauding the NFL for censoring people who don't believe they have been treated fairly their entire life. Hypocrisy, anyone? I personally do not agree with this. And I don't agree with the fucking rule of the NFL, and how they're dealing with this. They're dealing with this in a political manner based on money, which professional sports is nothing but a money grab. But to silence people and to make it about something that it's not even completely about. None of the players that have taken a knee, starting with Colin Kaepernick, who I have spoke about on this podcast before, are doing it in any intent to be disrespectful to the military, to the patriotism, to the freedom, to anything fundamentally that people always claim they're against. They're trying to tell you that all of that doesn't exist when there is a serious racial problem going on. And this is 2018, and we're talking about racism as if it was pre-civil rights. And it's just baffling that all of this is happening. And there are plenty of other podcasts where people actually listened to another podcast yesterday that kind of spoke about this issue, is how because everybody was looking for the extreme to the Obama years to change it up, and we ended up with Donald Trump thinking that it was going to be refreshing because he was outspoken and he's just fucking ridiculous, then it's kind of backfired, and now people are realizing, maybe is not the way, because what it's doing, it's breeding everybody who was closeted and not saying anything to come out and say because they think it's right because the president is saying it. And I'm not saying that I want to silence anybody. I believe in the Bill of Rights. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the freedom of speech, the freedom of press. All of those I believe in. But what I'm saying is when you're blatantly spewing something hateful to something, to another person, that I just don't get it in this day and age. Yeah, we may not agree with people's lifestyles that aren't our own, which is actually more of a fear and whatever, but we don't have to be hateful because of our misunderstanding of other people. And I may not like what Joe Blow does next to me, but I'm not going to be hateful and violent or take it out on them. I'm just going to be on my merry way and live my life the way I can. And it's just ridiculous how, because the president sees fit to take Twitter just as much as the next person, that people who are his supporters are just simply taking advantage of the fact and not realizing the consequences. Thus, this whole thing with Roseanne. Now, it's sad because the entire cast and crew have now lost their jobs and are now going to have to figure out what they're doing, because Hollywood is one of the hardest industries to break into nor to keep going. A lot of people jump from project to project, and that's a whole nother episode, I guess, in itself. But that's sad because she didn't think of the other people that are on her show just because it's her name and based on her ideologies and beliefs, that she was like, oh, fuck, I'll just tweet this joke, nobody's going to care, and then, yeah, the whole world fucking cares, because we're in a oversensitive time, which can lead to the fact that people don't feel comfortable living in the times we are living, because it's hateful. And on that note, there is if you have not figured out already by a lot of my guests and conversations that I've had about certain music, I'm heavily into trance music, which is a form of electronic dance music or electronic music, depending on your opinion of that, which I will not get into right now. But on that note, there is an interesting thing happening. So, within the electronic dance music scene and community has always been an interesting one in terms of the fact that it has always sought the whole rave culture, despite what people's stigma and beliefs on it. It's not all about drugs and getting fucked up and being weird. What it's about is being able to be yourself and be comfortable with people who are like-minded as well. Whether you agree with them on the specific genre of music is a whole nother debate. But recently, EDC, or Electric Daisy Carnival in Las Vegas, just wrapped up. But I read a Instagram post today from a pretty well-followed person in the scene who is openly gay, has never really not been open about it, but that's not really the whole point. He really spews a lot of great inclusion and is trying just to make sure that the scene is fun and everybody has a good time and is safe. And he explained in his Instagram post today that he was hit with hate at EDC for being gay. They called him derogatory names, and then they punched him, resorted to violence for him just being himself, wearing what he was wearing, hanging out with his friends. And a few people decided to not only let people be, which EDC, I've been to EDC, I went the last couple years, and I thought, from my experience, that if the world was better, if the world was more inclined to be like the community of EDC, inclusive, thoughtful, helping people, despite your differences in opinion on music, we're all there just to kind of escape and have a good time, that this sort of thing would not happen. But people are saying because it's become more mainstream and more people are, experiencing it for the first time, there seems to be a little bit of, I don't know what the right word is, but I guess misunderstanding of what the scene really represents based on how mainstream and popular electronic music has become over the years, specifically in the United States. So I want to point out that I think what happened to this person, and I'm sure he's not the only one recently that this has happened to, but I'm very appalled that in a scene that prides itself on being very accepting, open, honest, and just a good scene to be a part of, because not all of us are druggies or take to that sort of the scene, but we're not also judging people for what they do in the scene. To endure such hate like this and people resorting to violence, it just kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the episode, which was that I guess we're in a time that no matter whatever you are partaking to escape or to try to live life, that we've become such a hateful society regardless. Everybody's just pissed off about everything. And whether you are warranted in your distaste of somebody or not, that is really not your decision to make. I just wish people would just live their lives without fucking caring what the next person does. And I also see the kind of hypocrisy on that, what I just said, being that I'm so pissed about what is going on. But I just don't see without speaking about it and getting this on my soapbox and letting people know that there needs to be checks and balances just as much. I mean, it can be seen as hypocrisy that I'm getting on my high horse and talking about it, and that it could be seen as that I'm hating on people, but I'm not trying to hate on people. I'm trying to explain to people that we just need to be fucking equal people, live our life, and not worry about the next person next to us, what their lifestyle is, what their choices are, as long as we realize that being a racist hater and a bigot is not the direction to go with said ways of speaking and thinking. I just, the closed-mindedness is beyond me. And without fear of rambling on about such subjects, that is all I wanted to talk about today on my soapbox. So with that, BB is out.